Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here today. I'm Vikramaditya Jakkula from Data Mining Tools Inc. I'm excited to present to you on the topic of risk management. Today's session will cover key strategies and tools to help manage risks effectively. We'll explore the latest techniques and real-world applications that can make a difference. Let's get started and dive into the world of risk management together. Let's take a moment to understand what risk management is all about. Essentially, it's a structured approach to identifying and handling potential problems before they happen. It helps us protect our projects, resources, and even our reputation. Now, there are three main steps we follow in risk management. First is identify. This is about pinpointing what could go wrong, whether it's a technical issue, a resource shortage, or a schedule delay. Being thorough here is key because if we miss something early on, it could cause bigger problems down the line. Next is develop response. Once we've identified the risks, we need to plan how to respond. That can mean avoiding the risk altogether, reducing its impact, or preparing contingency plans. The goal is to be proactive rather than reactive. And lastly, we have control. This step involves monitoring the risks continually and making adjustments as needed. Things can change, so our risk management isn't a one-time effort, it's ongoing. These steps form the core of effective risk management and tie directly into the overall goal of keeping our projects on track and successful. Let's talk about the importance of a shared vision or mission in a project. This could be considered a charter that clearly defines the purpose. Having this shared understanding helps create buy-in among team members, fosters understanding, and boosts motivation. It's essential that our goals are achievable to keep the team focused and motivated. An executive champion plays a critical role in the success of the project. Their support can make a big difference in overcoming obstacles. Open planning is also key. It's important to include those who will carry out the plan, because they often have valuable insights. As the project progresses, we should continuously refine our estimates of effort and resources needed. Documenting and announcing risks and achievements keeps everyone informed and engaged. Many teams set up a project webpage to share updates and resources transparently. Additionally, maintaining a top 10 risks list, highlighting risks, resolutions, and progress, helps us stay proactive. Finally, remember, plan early, but also plan often. Flexibility and ongoing planning are crucial for adapting to new challenges and ensuring project success. Let's take a closer look at how risk levels vary depending on the amount of risk management overhead. In most projects, the average effort spent on risk management is actually quite minimal. As a result, these projects tend to accept very high levels of risk without much resistance. On the other hand, successful projects tend to allocate a small but meaningful amount of overhead specifically for risk management. This investment helps to substantially reduce their overall risk exposure. So the key takeaway here is that some budget and effort should definitely be committed to managing risk effectively. It's not about eliminating all risks. That's often impossible, but about controlling and reducing them to improve project outcomes. Now you might be wondering, how much effort is enough? Well, that's what this next point is about, finding that balance and understanding how even a modest investment can make a big difference. So when we talk about risk, it might be something very obvious, like developing a new drug to treat cancer. That kind of risk is clear because if the drug doesn't work, the project could fail entirely. But risks aren't always that obvious. For example, imagine you're managing a large contract that requires multiple subcontractors. How do you ensure they'll deliver on time and meet quality standards? That's a risk that needs to be carefully managed to avoid delays or quality issues. Another less obvious risk is industry turnover. If key people leave the project unexpectedly, it can cause significant setbacks. Or consider a departmental reorganization. Such changes can disrupt the project's flow and progress. This is where risk management comes in. It's the systematic process of identifying these uncertainties early on and handling them proactively. Our goal is to increase the chances of success by understanding and mitigating potential issues before they become bigger problems. It's really about being prepared and strategic in our approach. Let's talk about proactively understanding and managing risks. These are some of the key areas we need to keep an eye on throughout the project. First, being late, timeliness is crucial to keep everything on track. Then, being over budget, staying within financial limits helps ensure project success. Uncertainty is also a big factor. Things don't always go as planned, so we need to be prepared for unknowns. Quality assurance is another vital aspect, making sure the output meets the required standards. Managing these risks isn't a one-time task. It's an ongoing, iterative process. We identify potential issues early, assess their impact, and develop strategies to address them throughout the project lifecycle. This proactive approach helps us prevent problems before they occur or minimize their effects if they do. So, why is risk management so important? Because it helps us maintain control, stay aligned with our goals, and deliver successful outcomes. It's about being prepared, adaptable, and always aware of what might go wrong, so we can steer the project smoothly from start to finish. Risks exist at both the business level and the project level, so it's important to select the right project and also focus on project-level execution. For example, building a new office building on time and within budget is primarily the project manager's responsibility. But if it turns out there is no demand for office space once the building is completed, that becomes a business-level issue. Project managers tend to focus most on the execution of their specific projects, making sure everything stays on track. Meanwhile, program managers, functional managers, or senior leadership are more concerned with the broader business risks, things that could impact the overall success of the organization. So, when we talk about the level of risk management, it's crucial to recognize who is responsible for what. The project team handles the project-level risks, while higher-level managers oversee the strategic business risks. Understanding this distinction helps us better manage risks effectively across all levels. All right, let's walk through the key components of the project plan. First, we have the LL plan and the HL plan. The LL plan refers to the low-level planning details, while the HL plan covers the high-level strategic overview. Both are essential to ensure alignment and clarity throughout the project. Next, the charter is the foundational document that defines the purpose of the project. It's important to review and publish this to ensure everyone is on the same page about the objectives and scope. Then we move to the SOW, or Statement of Work. This should clearly document the goals, scope, and deliverables, along with an HL budget estimate. Reviewing this with the project board helps confirm that the expectations are realistic and agreed upon. Communication is vital, so we develop a communication plan that outlines how we will communicate at different levels and with various stakeholders. Regular reviews with the project board and stakeholders keep everyone informed and engaged. Risk strategy is another critical area. Identifying potential risks early enables us to develop mitigation plans. The project plan then brings everything together into a detailed roadmap for execution. It's crucial that the project manager defines a clear process for executing each phase effectively. Finally, the emphasis is on execution, ensuring that all these planning elements are translated into action, and that the project manager leads with a well-defined process. This comprehensive approach helps us stay on track, manage risks, and achieve project success. Now, let's talk about how risk management influences both the project plan and the rules we set. When we identify potential risks early on, it allows us to adjust our project plan accordingly, making it more realistic and achievable. This means we can allocate resources more effectively and set more accurate timelines. Additionally, risk management helps us establish rules or protocols to mitigate those risks. These rules serve as guidelines for our team to follow, ensuring everyone is aware of the precautions they need to take. Overall, integrating risk management into our planning process is essential because it directly impacts the success of the project. It keeps us proactive rather than reactive, allowing us to navigate uncertainties more confidently. Remember, a well-managed project is one that anticipates risks and adapts accordingly. Let's take a closer look at the 3 main steps in our risk management framework. First, we have identify. This is all about finding the sources of project risk, understanding what could potentially go wrong. Recognizing these risks early helps us prepare effectively. Next, develop response. Once we've identified the risks, we need to determine how to mitigate them. This might involve changing some project documents, like the scope or schedules, to better address these risks. It's an important step because it allows us to adapt proactively rather than reactively. Finally, we have control. This means implementing the strategies we've developed and continuously monitoring their effects. It's about ensuring that our risk responses are working as intended and making adjustments if necessary. Together, these 3 steps create a solid framework for managing risks throughout the project. By systematically identifying, responding to, and controlling risks, we help keep our project on track and aligned with our goals. Let's explore the 4 main techniques to identify risks. First, asking stakeholders is a crucial step. Engaging with those involved helps uncover potential issues that might not be immediately obvious. This can be done through brainstorming sessions, which encourage open idea sharing, or through interviews, where you can dig deeper into specific concerns. Next, developing a risk profile list is a structured approach. You can gather these profiles from post-mortem reviews of previous projects, which provide valuable insights. By categorizing risks under different headings and identifying possible risk areas within each category, you create a living document that can be refined over time as you learn more. Finally, learning from similar projects is an effective way to identify risks. If you have access to historical records, you can analyze past experiences to spot common issues or emerging risks. This step involves first identifying what risks occurred previously, which can help you anticipate and mitigate similar challenges in your current project. Together, these techniques form a comprehensive approach to risk identification, ensuring you're well prepared to address potential issues before they impact your project. Now, let's talk about the 4 main techniques we can use to identify risks in a project. First, asking stakeholders is a great way to tap into their firsthand insights and experiences. They often have valuable perspectives on potential issues we might overlook. Second, developing a risk profile list helps us systematically identify and categorize risks based on their likelihood and impact. Third, learning from similar projects allows us to leverage past experiences. What worked well, what didn't, and what risks were encountered before. This can be incredibly insightful. And fourth, focusing specifically on schedule and budget risks is crucial because these are often the most immediate and impactful concerns in any project. For each of these tasks, we need to develop time and cost estimates. But then, a key question arises. How accurate do we believe these estimates are? How certain or uncertain are they? And what parts of these estimates are more unpredictable than others? Understanding where our estimates are less certain allows us to focus on how we can improve their accuracy, perhaps by gathering more data or applying contingency buffers. This process helps us better manage risks related to schedules and budgets, which is fundamental to keeping our projects on track and within scope. Let's talk about the core steps in the risk management process. First, we need to identify potential risks by analyzing their sources. This helps us understand what could go wrong and why. Once we've identified these risks, the next step is to define each risk clearly and assess their potential negative impact on our project or objectives. After understanding the risks, we assign a probability to each one, which helps us gauge how likely they are to occur. With this information, we can develop targeted risk reduction strategies aimed at minimizing or avoiding these risks altogether. Now, for risks that remain, we implement a risk strategy and continue to monitor for new risks that might emerge over time. It's a continuous process, so even after planning, we keep an eye on the situation. When we encounter known risks, we implement control responses to manage them effectively. And for new or unforeseen risks, we develop appropriate responses on the fly. All of this fits into our overall risk management plan, which guides us through controlling and responding to risks proactively. Remember, effective risk management is about being prepared and adaptable, ensuring that our projects stay on track despite uncertainties. When it comes to risks, not all of them are created equal. Some are more important or more likely to happen than others. That's why it's essential to have a plan in place that helps us prioritize and manage these risks effectively. First, we need to identify the severity of each risk. This means understanding the situation or condition that could lead to a risk, and then considering what the possible negative outcomes might be. By doing this, we get a clearer picture of how serious a particular risk is. Next, it's crucial to assess the probability of each risk occurring. Knowing how likely a risk is to happen helps us decide where to focus our attention and resources. Finally, with all this information, we develop a strategy to deal with each risk. This step involves planning specific actions or responses to either prevent the risk or minimize its impact if it does happen. This process is what we call Step II risk response strategy. It's about being proactive, understanding the risks thoroughly, and preparing appropriate responses so we can handle potential issues before they escalate. This approach ultimately helps us stay in control and keeps our project or organization on track. So, in this slide, we're looking at the condition of the soil, which requires us to use a complex boring machine that we have little experience with. This unfamiliarity introduces some risks. If we don't operate the machine properly, there's a chance it could get damaged, or worse, it could harm the riverbed. Machine damage could cost anywhere from $50,000 to $250,000, depending on the severity. Additionally, damaging the riverbed could jeopardize future contracts, as it might lead to environmental issues or contractual penalties. Now, when we look at the probabilities, there's about a 20% chance of equipment damage costing around $50,000, and another 20% chance of more severe damage costing up to $200,000. The remaining 60% indicates there's a good chance nothing will go wrong at all. Calculating the expected cost of damage, it comes out to about $55,000. That, based on the probability-weighted average of the potential damages. So the key takeaway here is that while the risk of damage isn't extremely high, the potential costs are significant enough that we need to carefully manage our operation and ensure proper training and precautions are in place. It all ties back to our overall goal of minimizing risks and maintaining project integrity. Now, let's look at our strategy for managing risk through staffing. We're considering hiring an operator directly from an equipment provider, which comes with an estimated cost of around $10,000. The key benefit here is that any damage caused by their operator would be paid for by the provider, reducing our potential liability. While this approach does add approximately $10,000 to the project cost up front, it helps us mitigate the risk of unforeseen damages or delays caused by inexperienced or unfamiliar operators. Essentially, this strategy not only helps us control costs related to damages, but also reduces the likelihood of schedule disruptions. It's a way to balance increased initial expenditure with the potential savings from avoiding larger, unpredictable costs down the line. This fits into our overall risk management plan by proactively addressing one of the common sources of project risk, operator performance, so we can keep the project on track and within budget. On this slide, we're looking at a specific condition that impacts our documentation process. Essentially, it requires that all diagrams be developed using a particular tool that our technical writers aren't familiar with. This creates a notable challenge because the team doesn't have experience with this tool, which can slow things down. Now, what are the consequences of this? Well, primarily, document generation and management tasks will take longer than usual. This increased time can also lead to rework, as errors might be more common when working with unfamiliar tools and new workflows. Let's talk about the probabilities. We estimate that work could be about 25% slower. This makes sense because everyone new to the tool would initially work at a junior level, whereas more experienced team members would work faster. As a result, the probable labor cost increases. If we assume the original effort was 20 units, multiplying that by 1.25, which accounts for the slowdown, gives us about 25 units of work. Similarly, the schedule might extend from 4 months to approximately 5 months, again scaled by this 1.25 factor. To sum up, this condition impacts both our timing and costs, highlighting the importance of considering tool familiarity in project planning. It's a reminder that adopting new tools without proper training can have significant ripple effects on our project timeline and resources. All right, so for this strategy, we're planning to send all our technical writers to a 2-day course on the new tool. The cost for this training is $2,200. The idea here is that by investing in this training, we can reduce the training factor to 1.1, which means our writers will become more efficient with the tool. Additionally, we're going to identify one tech writer to become a dedicated tool expert. This person will focus on exercising the tool more thoroughly and creating templates that others can use. This approach helps us bring the productivity factor down to 1, making our overall process more efficient and streamlined. The key takeaway is that investing in training and expertise not only improves individual skills, but also elevates the entire team's productivity. And ultimately, this aligns with our overall goal of optimizing our technical documentation process. Let's consider how we might organize risk information effectively, often using a table format. This table typically includes columns for the risk condition, the potential consequence, the probability of that risk occurring, and the strategies we can implement to mitigate it. For example, take the risk of losing staff, which could lead to a late project. In this case, the likelihood might be high, so we would classify the risk as H. To address this, our strategies should focus on increasing project documentation and requiring formal reviews. These actions help ensure continuity and clarity, even if team members leave unexpectedly. It's also worth noting that estimating the costs associated with risks can be very useful. Having a clear understanding of potential costs allows for better planning and resource allocation. Overall, organizing risks in a structured way like this helps us prioritize and manage them more effectively, contributing to the success of the project. Now, let's look at another format from the survival guide that can be really useful. This approach emphasizes clarity and simplicity, making it easier to communicate complex ideas effectively. The key points here are to keep your message straightforward, focus on the most important information, and ensure your audience can easily follow along. Remember, the goal is to connect these concepts back to our overall theme, being prepared and adaptable in any situation. By using this format, we reinforce understanding and retention, which ultimately helps us achieve better outcomes. So, always think about how your message can be delivered in the clearest, most impactful way possible. Now, let's look at the key steps in our risk management process. First, we need to identify the risks. This involves analyzing the sources of potential issues that could impact our project. Once we've pinpointed these risks, the next step is to define them clearly and assess their potential negative impact. This helps us understand what could go wrong and how seriously it might affect our objectives. After that, we assign a probability to each risk, which means estimating how likely it is to occur. This allows us to prioritize our efforts on the most significant threats. With that information, we develop risk reduction strategies, action plans to minimize or eliminate the risks. Then, we implement the risk strategy, putting our plans into motion. But risk management isn't a one-time activity. We need to continue monitoring for new risks that might emerge as the project progresses. Finally, for known risks, we develop control and response plans. This ensures we're prepared to respond effectively if those risks materialize, keeping our project on track. Overall, this process helps us proactively manage uncertainties and protect our project's success. Risk control is not a one-time step. It's an ongoing process. You need to continuously monitor risks just like you monitor the progress of your project. This means regularly reviewing risks with the project board to ensure everyone stays informed and aligned. During these reviews, we evaluate the current status of risks we've already identified to see if they've changed or if new information has emerged. It's also crucial to identify any new risks that might have come up. To keep everything organized, we create a risk control log, which is essentially a record of all risks, who's responsible for each one, and their current status. Assigning someone responsible for each risk ensures accountability. We then rank these risks by severity so we can focus our attention on the most critical ones first. Remember, risk management isn't a set-it-and-forget-it activity. It requires periodic updates to stay effective. This ongoing control process helps us stay ahead of potential issues and keeps our project on track. It's all about being proactive rather than reactive. Let's take a look at the risk control log. This document is essential for tracking all the risks we've identified throughout the project. It helps us stay organized and ensures nothing slips through the cracks. The log typically includes details like the risk description, the potential impact, and the likelihood of occurrence. It also records the mitigation strategies we've put in place to reduce or eliminate those risks. By regularly updating this log, we can monitor the effectiveness of our risk controls and make adjustments as needed. It's a dynamic tool that supports proactive management rather than reactive responses. Overall, the risk control log is a key component in our risk management process, helping us stay prepared and maintain project stability. It ties directly into our theme of maintaining control and ensuring project success. Let's take a moment to review the key points from our summary. Risk, in our context, is all about the systematic process of identifying and managing uncertainties to improve our chances of success. It's not just about avoiding problems, but actively understanding what could go wrong and preparing for it. There are 3 basic steps we follow in this process. First is identify. This means we work closely with others, team members, stakeholders, anyone involved, to spot potential risks early on. Collaboration is essential here because different perspectives can reveal risks we might overlook alone. Next is develop response. Once we've identified risks, we analyze them, and whenever possible, try to quantify their potential impact. This helps us prioritize which risks need more urgent attention and guides us in crafting effective responses. Finally, we have control. This involves implementing controls and monitoring them over time. Maintaining a control log is a practical way to keep track of risks and our responses, ensuring we're staying on top of emerging issues and adjusting as needed. By following these 3 steps, identify, develop response, and control, we embed risk management into our overall project strategy, making us more resilient and better prepared to achieve our goals. Thank you. I truly appreciate your time and attention throughout this presentation. End.